What if the only way to escape human extinction was to physically tear out the molten heart of a volcano? Listen to me very closely, because we are staring at the fragile, terrifying edge of a timeline that absolutely should not exist. I have just cracked open a heavily classified, forbidden dossier, and honestly, this explainer of Project Alternate Timeline 0 is going to change everything you thought you knew about survival. We are looking at a history that was never, ever meant to be uncovered.
Because dragging the molten core of a volcano across a frozen ocean, it isn't just some dark hypothetical. No, it is a desperate, violent reality that's actually captured right here in these archives.
Just listen to this historical record. It documents sheer, unadulterated madness. Quote, "They didn't build fortresses or castles to secure their new territory. Instead, they dug a massive hole in the ground, filled it with molten volcanic core they carried across the ocean, and forced the landscape to change its temperature." End quote. I mean, just let the sheer weight of that sink in for a second. They didn't adapt to the Earth, they literally broke the Earth to their will.
Let's get into Section 1, the extinction threat. So, to understand exactly how they reached this point of absolute desperation, we've got to look at the precise moment their biology basically failed them. The year was 300 after convergence. By this exact year, you see, the Askja colonies had pushed out from their volcanic homeland, trying to expand their reach onto the mainland. But instead of some triumphant conquest, they slammed into a terrifying, invisible wall.
Their nightmare actually had a name. They called it thermal deprivation. You really have to understand the horrifying reality of their mutation here. These colonists possessed a biology that was entirely 100% dependent on the extreme environment they came from. Without the active, life-sustaining geothermal heat of their homeland's volcanic fissures, their bodies just began to betray them. They began to literally shut down from the inside out. It was a fatal, unavoidable biological crisis.
They were looking at an impossible death sentence. On one side, you've got the Askja fissures, radiating this deep geothermal heat that was absolutely essential for their mutated biology to survive. On the other side, mainland Europe, just a freezing, unforgiving expanse that offered nothing but fatal thermal deprivation. It's a brutal catch-22. To stay meant stagnation, but to leave meant freezing to death.
Which brings us to Section 2, the impossible logistics. Faced with complete annihilation, they didn't surrender to the cold. Instead, they engineered this desperate marvel of geoengineering known as the Great Core Project. And the chain of events required here is just insane. Step 1, mine molten basaltic rock directly from the active Askja crater. Step 2, transport this literal liquid fire across freezing seas. Step 3, carve massive pits into granite bedrock using forces known as resonance choirs. And finally, pour the magma to establish calderas. I really cannot overstate the sheer impossible scale of this operation. It's mind-boggling.
Now, to even attempt this transport, they had to create the iron whales. These were hyper-specialized thermal tankers. Just imagine the visceral, terrifying contrast out there on the water. You've got super-insulated vessels holding thousands of tons of molten, superheated basaltic rock on the inside, while navigating deadly sub-zero oceans on the outside. One structural failure, right? One tiny breach in the hull, and that meant instant explosive vaporization. No second chances.
Meanwhile, a deeply unsettling mystery was waiting for them on the dark shores of the mainland, the resonance triers. Now, the archives don't describe traditional excavation machines like drills or explosives. No. They describe unknown forces utilized to carve massive underground insulation pits directly out of unyielding granite bedrock. They were actively preparing the frozen earth to receive the incoming magma, essentially tearing open the crust of the mainland.
And that leads us to Section 3, the Dark Triumph.
The ships arrived, the earth was open, and by pouring that imported volcanic magma into those carved granite pits, they successfully established the very first artificial calderas. Out of this impossible fire, a new dark empire rises, referred to in the texts as the Isi Medanieti. This entire civilization becomes powered by these artificial volcanoes. These glowing, radioactive pits serve as their ultimate political and biological capitals. Just think about the deep, philosophical dread of an entire society physically tethered to stolen, imported magma just to keep their blood flowing. It's wild.
They were dragging the volcanic signature of Iceland straight into the heart of a frozen Europe. It's a complete, unnatural geographical violation.
They absolutely refused to go quietly into the cold. So instead, they violently rewrote the geology of an entire continent just to mimic the womb that birthed them.
Which leaves us staring at a final, haunting question. Think about it. If they possessed the sheer will and the dark technology to drag the molten heart of a volcano across a freezing sea just to rewrite nature, what other terrifying truths are hiding in the rest of these archives? And honestly, it makes you wonder, what would we be capable of if we were pushed to that exact same absolute brink?